think if he had not started to get in a intellectual debate with Vance and Trump, if he had basically just kept his mouth shut, then we would probably be seeing that signing ceremony today. So maybe he did not want to sign the mineral deal. And of course, Trump and Vance, they look like they were dressing down a brave leader of a foreign country. And so I'm not dismissing their blame here as well. But it takes two to tango, and it looked like there was multiple people ready to get in a squabble in the Oval Office, which is just very unprecedented.
Joining us for more reaction is Daniel Lippman, who covers the White House and Washington for Politico. Daniel, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
I just want to get firstly your thoughts on this the events of this evening.
Yeah, this was a disaster for Ukraine because Zelenskyy did not act like any other president visiting or prime minister visiting Trump and having an Oval Office meeting. You're not supposed to get in a shouting match, obviously. You're supposed to be very grateful and saying really nice pleasantries. And so it almost seemed like he was doing this for an audience back home. Instead of what's the most strategic way to impress Trump and to be grateful and to have a good relationship with him so that I get the aid needed to defend my country. And so this really backfired, and we'll have to see what he does to try to apologize to Trump.
OK, so Daniel, just to be clear, you think Zelenskyy that he holds some of the blame for how this meeting broke down?
Yeah, I think if he had not started to get in a intellectual debate with Vance and Trump, if he had basically just kept his mouth shut, then we would probably be seeing that signing ceremony today. So maybe he did not want to sign the mineral deal. And of course, Trump and Vance, they look like they were dressing down a brave leader of a foreign country. And so I'm not dismissing their blame here as well. But it takes two to tango, and it looked like there was multiple people ready to get in a squabble in the Oval Office, which is just very unprecedented.
But to what extent do you think a lot of what unfolded in Washington was to do with feelings rather than clear-headed thought? Because the clip that we just heard, Trump tried to correct on a date. He got the date wrong. Vance seemed to be sort of almost emasculated by being spoken across. In your point of view, was this a lot of this about three very fiery personalities coming together and it combusting from within?
Yeah, it's like high school, basically, in terms of people's emotions getting the better of them. And you have to wonder, was it an ambush? Did Trump plan for J.D. Vance to really criticize Zelenskyy, or was that more impromptu? And then you also saw Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, who was sitting next to Vance, looking shell-shocked as well. So you have to wonder what was going on in his head. You had the Ukrainian ambassador, Oksana Marakova, with her head in her hands. So it really did not go as planned. But I also don't think that this is a total death knell for Ukraine, that this relationship could come back. But of course, there's lots of celebrations in Moscow tonight because it really looks like Zelenskyy's wings were clipped today.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Moscow. Just give us an idea of the broader ramifications for this. Obviously, Putin is going to be happy, but to what extent are the Europeans now going to have to regroup and potentially change their own strategy?
Yeah, the Europeans might have to give more weapons to Ukraine. The problem is that the European industrial base really can't support that. And America's economy is much stronger than Europe's economy writ large. And so I don't think Ukraine can have a great go at it in terms of replacing American weapons. And so maybe Zelenskyy might have to sue for peace. And he was basically in the Oval Office meeting, he was telling Trump, if you have a nice ocean, but if Russia takes over Europe, you're going to be next. And so, and Trump just said, Zelenskyy said, you're going to feel that. And Trump said, oh, don't tell us how we're going to feel. And so it was very petty. And Trump doesn't really have he just says what's on his mind. He doesn't really bite his tongue at all in the hopes of diplomatic niceties.
Is this a good place for global politics to be, where the feelings of three men can result in a war that's caused devastation in a country going on for longer than it might have otherwise done?
No, of course not. But it's also human relations, and this is what happens. People have egos. They have tender kind of psyches, and especially when you're vice president or president, both sides, you don't want to be criticized. You want to, you feel, you have lots of yes men saying, "Oh, President Trump or Vice President Vance or even President Zelensky, you're a hero. You're an amazing person," and so you don't really. You kind of lose perspective sometimes, and you take all of these insults in a way that is not very rational.
Okay, but what you mean? Obviously, you work for Politico. So, what is the Politico's reaction to this in Washington? There are obviously people in the Trump administration that will want to come out batting for their leader. But will there be anxieties even within the Trump administration over the risks in this approach?
I'm sure there will be, because you're already seeing Republican senators and House members mostly back Trump and say, hey, this was insulting by Zelensky. You have Democrats who are saying, hey, we stand with Ukraine. So it's kind of both sides are back to their corners. And so you have to wonder, is this mineral deal going to get revived? What do peace talks look like? Are we going to just cut Ukraine loose and not pursue a peace deal? But you also need Ukraine's buy-in, and Trump wants his Nobel Peace Prize. So it's in the interests of Trump to have Ukraine come back because they need Ukraine's cooperation to actually have a peace deal, because Trump is not the commander in chief in Ukraine. So Trump can't just tell the Ukrainian soldiers to stop fighting. And so that's why they need Zelensky's buy-in as well.
I'm just going to borrow the opinion of Ria Lena, who's with me in the studio. Actually, Ria, do you want to come in and just make the point to Daniel that you made about the mineral deal and it being of value and it being effectively a failure that he's come away without it?
Well, I just think it's an easier win for Trump to laud about, to be able to say, I believe the president of Ukraine, and that was my win today, isn't as strong when people say America first as it is to say, I signed a deal, we got a great deal, we got everything out of this, and he hasn't come away with a deal all week, actually. And what we've watched is three different men manipulate Trump in three different ways.
Daniel, is that a fair point? He sold this as a good deal for America. Now there currently isn't a deal. Is that not a defeat on his own terms?
Well, this is why Trump, in his statement after the meeting, saying that the visit was over, he said he welcomed Zelensky back to the White House, saying, hey, when you're ready for peace, then come back and we'll figure it out. And so I would imagine in the next few weeks, after the dust has settled, after the tempers have cooled, then we will likely see that. And we also saw Zelensky issue a statement or a tweet saying, thank you, President Trump, thank you, America. And so he is responding to J.D. Vance in terms of the gratitude element that Vance thought was missing. And so that's kind of, in this Washington, which is all Republican and Trump oriented, you have to be grateful to the leader, basically, and Zelensky was not seen as grateful enough.
Okay, Daniel Lippman, who covers the White House in Washington for Politico. And just before we go to an ad break, Peter, it seemed like Daniel was sort of sharing out the blame there more. Mm-hmm. Is that a fair point, or is that more of a consequence of being in the kind of slipstream of the White House machine? I'm not saying he's part of the White House machine,
no,
but obviously part of the briefings and closer to the administration.
Well, certainly both sides will want to spin this. I used to do that job. I was a special advisor for 3.5 years, and certainly when something goes wrong, your job is to say, actually, we won, and what you saw wasn't exactly what you thought you saw. It's something slightly different. And these kind of opinions will keep on coming, and actually the White House themselves have said that Trump and Vance, they've put a statement out in the last little while, say we'll never allow the American people to be taken advantage of. This thought, this idea, planting the seed, really, that Zelensky was in some way taking advantage of people. Regarding Zelensky, the White House says that Vance and Trump will always stand up for the interests of the American people and those who respect the United States' position in the world, which is very interesting. And certainly there are many Americans, and particularly MAGA Americans, Trump Americans, who really do feel that respect issue is a big thing, and that America first, this idea that America is the greatest country in the world, can't possibly ever be not the greatest country in the world. There's a lot coming out there. And actually, we're also hearing from CBS, the American network, that the Ukrainian delegation left the Oval Office to a separated room, and there it was Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, and the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said, time to leave. So actually, slightly differently than what I thought earlier,
Fair enough.
were actually basically told to leave.
Okay, so
well,
just let Rialina come in.
No, I was going to say, yeah, I think they were told to leave, but were they told as in you need to get out? Or were they told, hey, listen, probably best if you leave it right now, mate?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't know what the
I think
tone
Ria
was.
makes a fair point. It could have been instruction or it could have just been advice. Do keep the text coming in, 87222. Start your message with the word Times. You can tweet us at times.radio. And as I say, there is a spread of opinion, overwhelmingly in favour of Ukraine and Zelensky. But Ben, for example, said that Zelensky is no hero for his country. A true hero would have brought back peace and an end to the slaughter. So there is a spread of opinions, but like I say, most of it is with President Zelensky. Now, don't go anywhere without taking Times Radio with you this weekend. And then from 10 tonight, Henry Bonsu will be here when we're expecting to hear more from President Zelensky in the US. I believe he's got an interview with Fox News.
That's right. That's going to be 11 o'clock our time.
11 o'clock our time. As last we heard, that is going ahead. And tomorrow morning from 6, Rosie Wright and the brilliant Callum MacDonald. They're both brilliant. I spoke to them earlier today.